All right, you bastards, listen here. We're talking now about the women I had sex with, numbers 4, 5, and 6. I think that's correct. And also, I've neglected to mention this whole time. When I looked back at these names, when I started keeping track around 20 was where I thought, hey, I'm going to forget these names if I don't put them down now. And from then on, I've listed every name of every girl I've had sex with since. When I first devoted these to paper, I was originally keeping score, a 1 through 10 score of every girl. So I'm going to read back those scores, starting with number 1 up to 5. So the college boy Eiffel Tower on the cheerleader girl, I have that girl scored a 6.7. The fat whore with the pierced nipples, as I would believe I described her, 6.5. The girl who was the sister of the hot girl I knew's brother, who got basted to when I banged her in Hawaii, she's at a 7, moving up in the world. And then lastly, or not lastly, the 3 more chicks I'm going to talk about today, 7.5 for the first one, 6 for the second one, and then a 7.25, my highest score yet for the last one I'm going to talk about today, number 6. By the way, people, the score I go on is not academic, meaning a 7 is not a C, therefore pretty shitty. A 7 is decently above average. A 5 is average, top of the bell curve, like in science, like for human heights. This is 5'8" or something in men, and then there's the standard distribution off to either side of the fucking midgets and the giants over here. Same with this. The Victoria's Secret models, the homeless ladies smoking crack, rifling through dumpsters over here. I don't know if this is going to be switched around in your orientation, but this is my right, the right side of the bell curve. I'm going to have to fight through this, by the way, too. I've been editing, writing all day. A little tired. But hey, something I'm trying to work on now. Being disciplined, always showing up, always putting on my helmet and throwing in the mouth guard, getting out there on the field and getting it done. I read a quote somewhere that a good plan executed today is better than a perfect plan executed next week. And I try to live by that. And I never regret it when I do. When I go out filming when I'm sick, filming when I'm tired, filming when I don't think I can be funny, I never regret the decision to go try anyway. An example is the Bakersfield video. My roommates came home shit-faced while that video was the night before that video got shot, woke me up. The dog next door, there was a barking dog, woke me up at 5 a.m. again. I was on at most 5 hours of sleep, and that's one of the favorite videos on the channel is Bakersfield. So, apply that in your own lives, guys. Do what you gotta do. Fatigued or not, hungover or not, underslept or not. Let's talk about the girls I had sex with. Number 4 was an older girl. I want to say 3, 4 years older than myself. We knew her sister, but this girl, I think she might have even been up in junior college at this point when I first had sex with her. But before I had sex with her, there was a night, my senior year, after I'd had sex with Fat Whore, but before I had sex with the girl in Hawaii. In the middle there, she showed up at this Christmas party we were all drinking at. My buddy, incidentally, Steven Besso, from that jiu-jitsu video, I mentioned his name a bunch of times as a joke. We never actually used to beat the shit out of each other there, by the way. But his older sisters knew this chick who would become my number 4. She shows up at the party. We looked at her with this mythical reverence, like, oh my God, this older hot chick. And once we started drinking, and she started drinking, there came a point in the night where she started flirting with me a little bit. I still refuse to understand it. I was a skinny, lanky kid with a big nose, a shitty haircut, wearing a Volcom sweatshirt or just some douchey standard high schooler outfit. And this girl, again, sophisticated, community college woman, she came over to me and started flirting, even though she should probably have been dating guys in their mid-20s up into their early 30s at that point. At some point, we made out. I don't remember the exact details, but I remember we made out. That Christmas party was the first day of our high school Christmas break, and I was so psyched the next morning, and that energy carried on through my entire Christmas break. But no sex. No consummation, nothing happened. It wasn't until I had a party at a house I lived at after I moved out of my parents' house that I was finally able to put my penis in this older woman's vagina. A little background on this house. I started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu my junior year of high school. Started showing up, training a little bit of everything, kickboxing, normal boxing, Jiu-Jitsu, and I was still so young and so stupid, and I didn't know how terrible of a career choice being a professional MMA fighter was. And then, junior year and senior year, I legitimately thought I wanted to be a professional fighter. I wanted to hop in the cage with Diego Sanchez and Kenny Florian or whoever else was the top guy back then. I thought I'd be able to have a chance in a couple of years of training. I'd be able to go make a living in the UFC. So after hanging around the gym a lot, it was a gym called Ultimate Fitness in downtown Sacramento. And just by chance, it also happened to be one of the most elite fight teams in Northern California. I saw an ad for it running during one of the old pay-per-views for Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz. This was the early days of MMA, before it was huge, pre-Ronda, pre-Conor. The ad was shitty, the gym was shitty, but I went down there, and by golly, it was a real fight gym. Started bonding with the guys. They saw me as this little brother figure, and they were all college-educated dudes, smart guys. Uriah went to UC Davis. Some of the guys went to UC or Fullerton State University. Not that it matters. The point is, California boys, smart guys who were kind of like who I would become in a few years. And we started talking, hanging out. I showed up at Uriah Faber's fight against Jens Pulver in 2008, shit-faced drunk. I somehow snuck into the after party with a fake ID, came back to the after party at Faber's house, uninvited. I was blacked out. I don't remember even how I got back there. I stowed away in somebody's trunk. And I remember Uriah Faber's little sister was coming on to me that night too. That was a strange situation. Nothing happened. But after all that, the bond was even tighter. And when one of the guys in the fight team bought a house on Uriah Faber's block where there were 4 fight houses, a bunch of fighters living in them, I was extended an invitation to come live. So after I graduated high school, I said, fuck it, let's do it. Moved into a room, was paying a measly $400 a month in rent. God damn it, how I missed that. With bills now, I pay $1,500 down here in LA for an identical room. And arguably a less nice house. Moved in on the block, and from then on, it was my college. Before I was in college, I was still in CC, junior college. But there were all these older fighter dudes who were bringing home hot girls and getting wasted. And of course, I had no game back then. I was like the Nico of our squad now. That's where I was as far as maturity and pussy getting level. Halloween rolls around. We decide we're going to have a little party. Not a little party, a kegger, a multi-kegger. We got 3 kegs. I remember putting up the Facebook post for this thing. The subtext of the Facebook post was so lame. It was, hey, remember me, that kid who used to be a shithead in high school who was a loser? Yeah? Well, now I'm hanging out with a bunch of fighters. I posted pictures of all the fighters in the Facebook post, invited chicks only to the party. All that was spelled out in the text. It was the lamest thing I've ever done, potentially. I could probably go back and find it today. I want to jump into a ravine and end my life if I did go back and find that thing. Holy God. But I put it up, and a lot of women ended up coming. A lot of girls I knew from high school. A couple guys I knew from high school too. And some of those guys were friends with the younger sister of that older chick I made out with at the Christmas party. She shows up. I'm dressed like a gladiator or some bullshit. And when she shows up, there were some gym hags there that also trained MMA at the gym we were at, who were basically just big fatzos who were trolling for fighter cock. They saw me as this cute little kid who was hanging around with the fighters. They probably wanted to have sex with me too, because I was the only one willing to have sex with these older fat women. But the chick from the Christmas party saw the attention they were giving me, maybe got a little jealous, and she butted in at some point and started vying for my attention. The details are blurry here, but I took her back to my bedroom, went out and borrowed a condom from my buddy Matt Sanchez. I remember he offered me a Magnum at first, and I shook my head and said, I don't think I'm ready for that, buddy. He's like, you're right. I'm going to start you off regular-sized Trojan condom. I took that thing, I went into the room, I put it on, and I had sex with this girl. She was willing. At her age, 22, 23, totally willing to have sex with an 18-year-old. And I have a feeling she regretted it. Why do I say that? Because I came no longer than a minute and a half into this. I talked about this last time. My premature ejaculation, just came in the condom, started making up some bull about having to urinate, excused myself from the room, went, pulled the condom off, threw it in the bathroom, took a piss, came back in and said I wasn't in the mood anymore. It sucked. And she was older, so she must have known I was bluffing, and then I'd just blown my load in the condom right away. And I was starting to panic at that point. Because if you're keeping track, in Hawaii that happened to me, and then here again, in Sacramento, I'm going to call this era of time when I lived on Uriah Faber's fighter block, the block time. Here in my bedroom on the block, the same problem again. And again, with girl number 5. And I think I can tell you who this girl is, use her full name, refer you to a video of her, because she admitted to having sex with me on Facebook publicly. I don't think she gives a fuck. Remember the girl from the reunion? The girl who showed up with her boyfriend because her husband couldn't make it? You remember that scene? I ruined my high school reunion. A lot of people commented on it. That's the girl I had sex with. She had a rack. I scored her a 6 here. Let me know if you guys agree with that score. It's funny. The first time I interacted with her, I'm going to give you a little pre-story. Actually, the pre-story goes back real far. In middle school, this girl was in my shop class, and I was so inept with the opposite sex. My hormones were raging, and I just wanted any kind of attention from females that I could get. So I resorted to being really annoying. Whenever she said anything, I just said a your mom joke. She'd say, wow, Mr. Nodoff's really in a grouchy mood today. I'd say, your mom's in a really grouchy mood today? She'd say, it's a little overcast. I should have brought my Abercrombie & Fitch sweatshirt. I'd say, your mom should have brought her Abercrombie & Fitch sweatshirt. Fast forward, I lived on the block in 2008. There isn't a whole lot to tell about how the situation went down. She came over midday, dead sober, both of us dead sober, and I remember her saying once she got there that the way into her pants was through literature. I had 2 books on the shelf maybe, one of which was a Vietnam War book my father had given me. I don't like that I just said father either. My dad had given me. People in Manhattan that come from wealthy families, they say father. It makes me uncomfortable. The book my dad had given me was called Guns Up, about Vietnam, and I just gave her a brief synopsis of the book, only though I'd read like 25 pages at most. And that was enough. She started getting naked, started blowing me. I put a condom on, had sex with her, and came in under 2 minutes. I remember admitting to her that I prematurely ejaculated. I had to come face to face with the beast, with this affliction that had now haunted me for 3 girls in a row. She left. She kissed me on the way out. And I remember the way I joked it off was I said I wasn't impressed with my performance. That was a famous George St. Pierre, the MMA fighter's line. What he said, Matt Hughes, I'm not impressed with your performance. I copped the George St. Pierre line in order to talk my way out of premature ejaculation. She still kissed me on the way out. I think she wasn't disgusted with me. She'd text me a couple times. But I had a weird thing then, when after I had sex with a girl, I would just be disgusted with them and I never wanted to have sex with them again. So Rachel disappears from the picture, never talked to her again. And then, in the year 2009, so Rachel was at the end of 2008, December, In 2009, early 2009, while I'm still living on the block, this girl Lisa comes into the picture. Lisa had 2 sisters. They were triplets. The odds of that are very slim, of a father producing 3 daughters. But even slimmer are the odds of one having sex with all 3 sisters. I was able to nail 2 of these sisters. The elusive third one is still out there, and I think she's getting real serious and maybe even getting married to some dude. But I haven't given up hope. Somewhere in the future, I will bang her, and I will complete the Triforce. I'm going to talk about the second sister later on, but right now we're talking about Lisa, who was the middle sister. With Lisa, things started off, there were a lot of cameras involved. I remember she gave me a blowjob in the hot tub we had on the block. One of Uriah's main houses had a beautiful in-ground hot tub that was the spot for taking women, especially the first time you hook up with them. Gentlemen, there is nowhere easier to make love to a girl for the first time than a hot tub. On a couch, when you put your hand on her leg, when you scoot over, stretch the arm across her shoulder, she can see your limbs coming nearer and your hips inching closer the entire time. So there's no element of surprise. But in a hot tub, you're like a fucking alligator. All of a sudden, your hand is on her leg. When you want to float closer to her, you can literally float closer to her. It's anti-gravity in there. It's perfect. Your movements are disguised and your movements are made easier by the fucking water. And if you get a boner, if you're pulling your shorts down to your ankles, getting ready to enter, you're always one step ahead of her because of the lack of visibility if the jets are on. That was my move. And it's the move I pulled out on this girl, one of the sisters. She blew me in the hot tub. And I remember looking up at the window of the house that the hot tub belonged to and seeing a red dot in the window. I had my suspicions, but it wasn't until after I'd finished in this girl's mouth that I looked up and noticed the red dot was gone, and that basically confirmed it that somebody was filming. I later found out it was this black dude named Tito who I guess had the smallest dick of anybody on the block, which gave me hope as a white man that not every black dude out there is running around with a certified piece of salami between his legs. It made me feel good to know Tito had a very small penis. But he confessed the next day to filming us hooking up out there, and I'm sure he masturbated to it many times. But that gave me the idea. Here in 2009, this was the dawn of the personal cameras at an affordable rate. You could go out for a couple $100 and buy one. They might have even still had tapes back then. But my roommate of my house on the block, not the one at the hot tub, had just gotten a camera, an affordable new camera, was using it to film his jiu-jitsu matches, his kickboxing sparring sessions. He said, hey, if you want to bring a girl over and you want to film it, use my Sony. And I said, you know what, Matt? I got the perfect chick. Fast forward to when she comes over the next night. I got the Sony buried in my laundry hamper. It's halfway between one ball of filthy clothes and the other. It's sandwiched like an Oreo cookie, shooting out through the mesh of the hamper. And the picture looked good. I don't know how I accomplished that, but it worked. And with the lights on, I had sex with this girl on camera. And you know what? I think I'm telling you about the second time I had sex with her, but I'll just continue since I've already gone down this path. Had sex with her on camera, lasted a really long time. I'm going to backtrack in a second and explain my technique for how I learned how to do that. But I remember the guy who loaned me the Sony and his girlfriend that he was seeing, who is now his wife all these years in the future, now in 2020. They met in 2008. He fucked her after a night at a nightclub, the first night he met her, and now they're married and have 2 kids. But they watched and probably had sex to my sex tape that I filmed from the laundry hamper. Here's how I was able to stave off ejaculation. There's not much to it, actually. This isn't some big secret. But I realized that the period of peak sensitivity, or the window of peak sensitivity, is really only about 4 minutes. 4 minutes is the red zone. 4 minutes is the hair trigger. critical pressure buildup from your prostate, penis ready to explode inside the condom, and send you off with your tail between your legs to the bathroom, making up lies about a faulty bladder. Once you get past 4 minutes, though, it's smooth sailing. It's like you rubbed cocaine on your penis. The sensitivity recedes. And I learned that, or I was able to get to 4 minutes by simply pulling out like it was my idea to pull out, and not like I had to pull out. Pulling out and going down on my knees and performing oral sex. I would do that and just, again, act like it was something I wanted to do for her pleasure. And I did it, I don't think I could last more than 5-10 seconds humping. So it must have been really embarrassing or really shitty lovemaking that first 4 minutes. Just hump, 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 drop down, eat pussy. Hump, 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 drop down, eat pussy for a while. Hump, 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 drop down and eat her box for 30 more seconds until the orgasm recedes. But I made it to minute 4. And the song, I remember it to this day, and I still love this album and this song and this band. The song I was listening to was How to Disappear off The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. I just played that song over and over in my head during the 4-minute danger window. It got me through, and then from then on, we had sex for 50 minutes, an hour and 20, which was too long, but that was my victory lap, baby. And I wasn't going to end things early for nothing, after all that embarrassment I suffered. But yes, the filming thing, and my roommate and his girlfriend watching and having sex to the tape. Later on, she asked me, I think it gotten out somehow. I told one of my friends, and they told somebody else, and they told somebody else, the same kind of game of telephone that happened with the Eiffel Tower incident. She questioned me one night, did you film me? And I denied it, which I'm not proud of, that I filmed it and denied it. But I was a scumbag 18, 19-year-old at that point. What do you want me to do? And after a while, we hooked up a little bit longer, probably had sex 6 more times. She just got kind of tired of me not wanting to hang out any time other than late at night and just using her as a piece of ass, and she broke it off prematurely and started dating some other guy, which down the road opened me up to having sex with her sister. A nice consolation. That was an interesting time in my life, though, and I think it was important in my development. Not just in terms of getting pussy, but also in comedy. Because when I lived on the block, I was 18, 19 again, and all the other guys I was with were 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. I was the runt. I was the bitch. I was the least cool guy. I had the least status in martial arts and pussy getting and money and education and every measurable category. So I just had to shut my mouth and absorb their coolness like a sponge, which I did. They all had that Howard Stern wrestling room, locker room sense of humor, the shit-talky, oh, you're a pussy, fuck you, faggots, ripping on each other constantly like a pack of wolves going at each other's throat. And I think that's rubbed off on me today. I saw them with women. I learned their various forms of game. One that they like to hold up high above the rest was dirtbag game. They always sung the praises of it, which basically just meant being as big of an honest scumbag as possible. If you wanted a girl to come over and blow you, you just text her telling her that much. And my roommate, the guy Matt Sanchez, who I lived with, the best example of dirtbag game I ever learned from him. The first night I moved in, when I was brushing my teeth, I just left my parents' house. I'd actually been crying most of that afternoon because I was homesick and regretted my decision to leave the nest. He got these 2 girls over, a somewhat chunky Asian and a very unimpressive looking white girl. And while I was brushing my teeth and they were just watching movies in the living room, he announced, I think we should all get naked. Just pulled his cock out right there and started having the white girls suck it. That was a good intro to Dirtbag Game. Dirtbag Game is a little riskier in this time of the century. in 2020, a little more risky than it was in 2009, but I still think those lessons are valuable. And again, what I learned there was how to be cool, how to talk to chicks, how to have a good sense of humor. But also, it was such an important time in my life because I had guys like Uriah Faber who were accomplishing real shit. Certainly more than anybody I'd gone to high school with. Or, to be honest, accomplishing more than most other people I've met since. Uriah was, at age 27, 28, he already owned two or three houses. Was already a very famous MMA fighter, getting stopped on the streets all the time, getting autographs signed, making a pretty solid fucking living. He would eventually go on to make millions. He was having sex with the hottest girls I'd ever seen, and his attitude was maybe the biggest benefit that I received from living on that block. And his attitude was that if I want something, I have to write it down on a piece of paper, like I have here. These are my goals, and I've learned this from Uriah. I always carry my goals around in my wallet, leave them on my desk. You write down your fucking goals. He had it written down, and it was posted next to his bed. What he wanted to achieve in the short term, the medium term, and the long term. And you have to have an undying belief in yourself that you're going to accomplish those goals. And another thing that he said constantly was that idleness is the holiday of fools. Meaning that he was constantly working on achieving those goals he had written down next to his bed. And that attitude, that you can have anything you want in this life as long as you write it down and work hard for it, that was my biggest gift living there. And sometimes I don't know how other people manage to succeed in life without having a role model like I had at such a young age. And I wish that they would teach that in schools, parents would teach that to kids, and tell them to quit drinking, quit having fucking babies, quit doing I don't know what else, but just fucking buckle down, set their sights on something they really want in life and work hard toward it and believe they can achieve it. All right, guys, that was a little insight into the block period of my life, the pussy I had sex with there, and let me give you a little teaser of what else we got coming up. Yeah, those were all block lays when I lived in Uriah's block compound, but I've got plenty more, right? Not plenty more. I moved away from the block for a little bit and then came back. So there are probably going to be 5, 6, 7, 8 more names there. We'll talk about it all. I'm not sure what numbers I'm going to hit next week, but that's going to wrap it up for tonight. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for being patrons.